Biggest graphics card launch in years. Nvidia has made some big claims about the new GeForce GTX 1080 graphics card, faster than a Titan X, a VR gaming master, and a bit of a 4K beast. And we have one in the building. Right here, in fact, to put it to the test.
Jeez, you believe that guy? I hate these snobs.
If you're wondering why Nvidia has made such an enormous song and dance out of a consumer graphics card launch, it's because the company spent billions on getting its new architecture to market. Nvidia has moved on from its previous architecture, Maxwell, and introduced a new technique called Pascal. The key feature of Pascal is that it uses a smaller manufacturing process, 16 nanometers versus 28 nanometers, which means a greater number of transistors can fit onto any given piece of silicon. There are now 2,560 CUDA cores on the 1080 versus 2,048 on the GTX 980, and the whole lot's running at a much higher clock speed, up from 1126 MHz to a huge 1607 MHz. And that's before you get to boosts and overclocking. Memory has seen an improvement too. With 8GB of GDDR5X memory, there's now 43% more memory bandwidth, meaning more room for high-speed data transfers across the whole GPU. The Founders Edition card on test here represents Nvidia's own attempt at a premium product. And while it looks fantastic, and the tech inside is beyond reproach, I'm fairly sure you'll get better performance from a cheaper aftermarket card once they start going on sale. So what of performance? I ran several gaming benchmarks at both Full HD and 4K resolutions, and the conclusions are clear. The GTX 1080 is so far beyond the GTX 980 in 4K performance, they're barely even worth comparing, with performance 60% faster on the newer GPU in 4K. Instead, it's worth paying closer attention to the 980 Ti, which can be bought for around £500 to £550. In most 4K tests, the GTX 1080 was around 20 to 25% faster than the 980 Ti. Right now though, in the games I tested, no game would be unplayable on a 980 Ti at maximum settings in 4K, so if you don't mind turning down a few settings, a 980 Ti is still a perfectly good card for 4K gaming. In Dirt Rally at 4K, the 1080 was 59% faster than the 980 and 15% faster than the 980 Ti. In Tomb Raider, it was 60% and 25% faster. And in Hitman, it was 65% and 23% faster. Despite all the power, you'll only need a single 8-pin PCIe power connector where you would have otherwise needed 8+6 or even 8+8 on an older card. Peak power draw for our entire test system was 286 watts, compared to 270 watts for the GTX 980 and 336 watts on the 980 Ti. VR is worth considering too, as the GTX 1080 has various features that will boost VR performance, which you can read more about in my full written review. The GTX 1080 will have a much longer usable lifespan, not least because it has various software and hardware enhancements that have yet to be touched by developers, so performance delta on future titles will likely be much greater. It may be more expensive than the previous generation of GPUs, but the power efficiency boost and the huge performance bump make the GTX 1080 the best graphics card you can buy today. AMD have yet to show their hand, so unless you have your heart set on a competent VR rig, it might be worth waiting for an AMD card or perhaps the GTX 1070, a lower spec but slightly more affordable card. So you might not need the 1080 right now, but if you're looking to future-proof or you want the best available right now, there's no other choice. The 1080 is phenomenal.